Hi, Mandy. How are you?
Hi, Carolyn. I'm good. How are you?
Great. Welcome to everybody. My name is Carolyn Dubé. I'm the Executive Director at Fertility Matters Canada, and we are thrilled to be here with you tonight um, to present this brand new series that we've got where we're going to be interviewing and talking to, chatting with patients across Canada who are going to be sharing their experience with us about what their fertility journey has looked like thus far. They're going to share a piece of advice and things that they wish they knew and things that they'd like to tell other patients who are going through things. So I'm thrilled to be here with you tonight. Thank you for tuning in. This new series is called TTC, Time to Chat, and our very first interviewee is Mandii. Mandii is a fertility patient, a long-standing volunteer with our organization, and is actually the coordinator of this entire Time to Chat series. So Mandii, thank you for your time. I'm thrilled to connect with you tonight, and I'm really excited for you to share your story with others.
Thanks, Carolyn.
So let's start with that. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your fertility journey?
Okay, thanks. So my fertility journey looked similar to a lot of patients, I think, in the sense of I kind of knew something was going on before I was presented to our fertility clinic in Ottawa. I know for some people, they aren't aware, but from my experience talking to a lot of people, you kind of were able to tell before that year was up that something wasn't working. It wasn't happening as quickly as your friends, or for some reason you didn't understand why all of a sudden you weren't falling pregnant. I knew I had endometriosis before, and I had reached out to my GP, but unfortunately there's policies and process and procedures in place, and I was told, oh, well, that doesn't mean that you'll have struggles with infertility, so go try for a year and come back to us if it doesn't work out.
And we hear that so much. I don't want to interrupt, but it's so interesting, you know, if you're a healthy female under the age of 35, and you've been trying for more than a year to get pregnant and it's not happening, you really do need to seek medical advice. And if you're a healthy female over the age of 35 and you've been trying for more than 6 months, you know, you really do need to talk. And I think that there's some confusion there. So it's really important. Thank you for addressing that.
Yeah, there is a lot of confusion. And it's funny that 1 year, though statistic-wise, we know that that is kind of a turning point. It's so important to them. So before that 1 year was kind of just try it out, we'll see. But then as soon as that 1 year hit, it was instant referral to the fertility clinic, which I'm grateful for. But it's funny to think like that 1 year just seems to be such a deciding factor when it comes to how the policies work.
Okay. And you had an underlying fertility issue, a reproductive health issue.
Exactly. But so one of the struggles with endometriosis is it may cause infertility, it may not. And because they don't know for sure whether it will with you, there's kind of no proactive things around it, which can be really frustrating. And I feel for a lot of our patients. And so after going through the tests, I was actually diagnosed with unexplained infertility. So that is still my diagnosis because endometriosis does not mean that you will be infertile.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah, which was really interesting for us because it was a little confusing to navigate when you're going, but I know I have endometriosis and I know endometriosis can cause infertility. But so we were given the diagnosis of unexplained infertility. And then at that same time, it was a very confusing time for us because we were weighing our options, and we got a call saying they told us to put our name on the IVF wait list right away. And we actually got a call to let us know like our time with the IVF waitlist in Ontario funded cycle had come up at the same time as trying our first IUI. Wow. So we made some hard decisions there, decided to forego the IUI, go with IVF, and then funding was cut for the end of that fiscal year. So we were bumped to the next fiscal year. So we said, okay, never mind, let's try the IUI. Like anything when you're dealing with funding, right? There's a lot of red tape. And I'm sure a lot of our patients are trying or have seen navigating. Well, as grateful as I am that Ontario has a funded cycle, there's a lot of red tape around that funded cycle due to it being funded by the government.
Absolutely.
And so we did try an IUI. We've had 2 early losses, chemical pregnancies, and we did end up going with the IVF funded cycle that we were super grateful to have conceived our daughter with.
Amazing. That's amazing. And how old is your daughter now?
She is 1.5.
Wow. That's amazing. Like, and how long was how long was the entire process? So you tried for a year, nothing was happening. By the time you got into the clinic and got through your cycles, how long was that whole process?
Um, we were referred to the clinic in, I think our first appointment with the clinic was October of, sorry, I'm just trying to do the math. It was the year.
That's okay. It's sometimes hard when it's been years.
Exactly. So October 2016, I did end up having a laparoscopy, and then you're told to try for 6 months. So I'd say from our first appointment, October 2016, to we conceived our daughter, that was the summer of 2018.
Okay.
So we were really, really lucky in the sense of we did jump to the IVF when it came up. And after, that was kind of more my personal, we did one IUI and we did conceive successfully, but we had implantation issues. And from my own personal research, it just seemed like when that is an issue, and it was our second time with that issue with chemical pregnancy and endo, IVF just seems to look more successful studies wise.
For sure.
Decided when our time was up for the funded cycle to just go with that.
Yeah, I can understand that. So did you find, what was the struggle like? How, like, emotionally, for you, for your husband? I'd love for you to talk a little bit about sort of the emotional side about it, of your infertility, and where you found support.
I found it was really isolating. Something that was important to me was that I wanted to be incredibly open about it, because I had seen through other people I connected with how isolating it was. And it was almost from a purely selfish point. I thought that if we were open, it would help prevent the awkward comments and the uncomfortable, when are you going to have your next baby? And sometimes people would be uncomfortable. And my thought process behind it, though I had an extremely supportive spouse that was okay with me sharing everything, God, he's okay with doing this live, and he's kind of been right in there with me, and I appreciate it so much, was that, well, you might feel a bit uncomfortable, but I'm comfortable regularly. So live in my discomfort for a second. If that makes it uncomfortable for me to kind of challenge what you said, imagine the discomfort around 1 in 6 Canadian couples who are feeling that every time these regular comments are made, and not in a way to be hurtful, but just out of the way of people not understanding.
Of course. And that's a huge piece of it, that education to our peers and our friends and our family. Sometimes people say, they don't know what to say, and then they say things and they don't realize that they could be hurtful. So some of the work that we do here at Fertility Matters is to help educate patients, to have the words to use in those situations so you feel more empowered, less awkward, and maybe more like you don't have to hide as much, because that you're more confident in how you can respond to people.
Exactly. And sometimes saying nothing is okay too, right?
Absolutely. Sometimes just being there and letting your friend know that, listen, I'm here if you need me. We can go for coffee, or we can, connect on the phone. It's a really important conversation to have, especially if you can find that network. Were you part of any online support groups or any in-person support groups?
I found a lot of support through social media. There is a huge community on Instagram, and that's kind of how I actually found Fertility Matters. I was able to reconnect with people I went to college with and high school with, and it's funny how this unifies you, because it's true in the sense that no one really understands what you're going through if they haven't gone through something similar, but it's so common, so much more common than one would believe, right? And
absolutely.
Out to me and been like, you know what, I've been there, I might not be ready to share. Not everyone's ready to share to their capacity. I'm an open book, and that doesn't mean that that's right for everybody, right?
Agreed.
Connected with a lot of people. Instagram was a huge one. I found there was a lot of people who appreciate it, because there's that sense of being able to be anonymous, and you can just connect with people all over the world. And sometimes it's shocking. I had a lot of more appreciation for our healthcare system, but I also saw different parts of it, right? I saw the different part of when you are paying for the care, that personable piece that we tend to miss because it's not numbers going through the door, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. It does. I remember when you first connected with us, And it does seem like a very long time ago. So it's so interesting that, I remember your emails and connecting. So, and we're very thankful for the hours and time that you put into this organization to help us continue to support patients so that they can find that safe space to fall. So, what things did you learn on your fertility journey? Were there things that you think like, gosh, I didn't know this and I was shocked, or even things about yourself? Maybe not, it may not be about fertility, but it may be something about yourself or your relationships.
I think that one major thing is that you really have to advocate for yourself. You really, truly do. And even in the sense of being able to do the research and go out there and like, it's just, we have a healthcare system that is fantastic, but like any system, it has its flaws. And I find that there's not enough integration as of now, personally, not from any sort of professional standpoint, with holistic and medical health. And so I wasn't kind of hearing about different things I could try, or acupuncture. Like, I'd read about it, but it wasn't being discussed with me through my doctor. And I felt almost like I kind of found out about it a little too late, if that sort of speak, right?
That makes sense. Yes.
Acupunctures, and I'm like, oh, well, I'm about to go into my transfer. Like, oh, you should have started like before this. And I remember hearing that it was just bad luck that I had 2 chemical pregnancies in 3 months, and then watching one of our Facebook Lives with the naturopath saying that that's an incredibly common issue with women with endometriosis, and that the egg health and IVF is much more successful, and going like, okay, I didn't think twice in 3 months could just be bad luck.
Right.
Like, there's a little space in that. And so really just
the information gap.
Exactly, for sure, an information gap. And there's just so much. And there is so much that you can learn and that you can try, and you have to kind of do what's best for you and building your family. Being okay to put in those boundaries and being like, this is how much we're trying, or no, I can't. You can't do it all, right? So kind of picking what is important to you, and what you want to try along your way. And I think being mindful and compassionate with everyone, and that everybody's journey is different.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, we are thinking about throwing ourselves back in the trenches again for number 2. And I remember just thinking, well, if I just had one, like if someone just has one, you could be so grateful. But that doesn't, just because you were able to conceive that one doesn't remove the fact that you're infertile, right? And that you may want to grow your family.
That's right. That's really important that you touch on that, because we do hear that. We've had bloggers write blogs for us who talk about, having the guilt of being in the infertility community, conceiving, having a child, and then actually not feeling like your family's complete, wanting to go forward to have another child, feeling like you should be grateful for the child that you have. In fact, I've been told that by people in the fertility community that when I was on my journey, we had a son and we had been considering doing another cycle. And someone said, Carolyn, if it doesn't work for you, you really can be grateful that you have a child. And it just, for me, so there's this sort of, it's like an underground or an emotion that we kind of bury because we don't want to offend anybody else in the infertility community who hasn't had a successful pregnancy.
You're not in the infertility world anymore, but I remember going to the mom groups and feeling like, oh, but I don't quite fit.
Where do you fit?
Like, this is not like...
Exactly. You're right. And so it's really important that we continue to have these conversations, to make sure that people know that it's okay to yearn or want or to try for more children after you've gone through fertility treatment and had a child, and it's totally normal to feel that way. And some people will continue, and some people will stop. Everybody's journey will look different, and some people won't have the success with the treatment, and they will choose another route or will live child-free. It's very complicated and so complex. So it's okay. It's nice to sort of touch on that, to say, like, we all have to remember that we are still in this together, no matter where we are.
Exactly.
On that spectrum.
Right? Because everyone's journey is going to look different, and you don't know, and I don't think you can know until you're at that exact point in that journey how you're going to feel.
Absolutely. You're so right. Is there anything that you would have done differently?
Um, hmm. I think I would have asked more questions, and just like small questions, right? You're just so grateful. And I was so eager, just so eager to get to the next step and get going. And like, it's funny because even then, like, me and my husband were talking about, and you remember even pieces differently, right? Like, I remember we were talking about when we did our transfer and how we had 5 embryos and it ended up 4 in, but 5 weren't good enough to freeze. And due to the Ontario regulations, you can only, if you're under 35, transfer 1 embryo at a time.
Right.
That's the regulations the government puts in. And I remember being heartbroken. So now I'm like, oh, well, I wish I could have just like transferred one of them, like the mediocre ones, and froze the good one, and then had it, like, it felt like I was saying it was so wasteful. And then my husband's going, but I don't even think that they would have been viable. And I'm like, well, that wasn't my understanding. But in that moment, they were just like, okay, we're going to transfer your best shot. The others, and I was just like, okay. And I'm
right.
That maybe I would have done something differently, but that is one of those constant things that plays in the back of my mind. I think feeling
hindsight,
ask those questions in the moment and not getting swept up of just going, okay.
Absolutely. And that's really something, because when you're sitting in those meetings, you're anxious. You've been waiting for so long. You just want to get the process started. You are listening to the experts. And sometimes having a checklist, that's something that maybe as an organization we should be doing. We should be putting together a checklist for patients to be able to print off or download on their phone, just to say, okay, did I ask all the questions that I wanted to ask? And what were the things that I didn't even know I was supposed to ask?
Yeah, I don't know about you, Carolyn, but there were so many times I would get into the car after an appointment and then all these questions, and my poor husband would go, well, why didn't you ask any of them? And I'm like, because I didn't think of it then.
Exactly. It's so overwhelming. And when you're trying to process, you may have heard the word ICSI for the first time, and that doesn't even mean anything to you. So that's what you're focusing on, not what you should, potentially could be asking or feel like you should be asking. So, okay. So asking more questions, that's a really, really, and it's okay to ask questions. And the experts that we talk to when we do our Figuring Out Fertility series, we're talking to experts, they're always saying, ask questions, advocate for yourself. And I know that's hard, but feel confident enough to know that no question is stupid. This is your health. This is your medical, story, and this is your family. And so it's okay to ask whatever questions you need to ask, as long as you're thinking about them in the moment. Well, and you can ask later. Make sure you collect maybe the contact information of your physician or the expert, whether it's a lawyer or whomever, so that you can connect with them later when questions do come up. I think that that's really important.
When I think I found Fertility Matters mid-journey, and I had found Instagram, but again, like, I remember how overwhelming when it first joined, and that's it, right? I can't imagine someone who hasn't connected with a community going in. Like, half of the things I already knew about going in, there's just so much.
Right. You would have learned through that that connection and support online. Absolutely. So looking sort of back, maybe, what would you tell someone now that you're sort of a veteran of the fertility journey? Not that your journey's finished, but now that you have some experience, what would you tell someone that's just starting out or who thinks that, maybe I have a problem, I'm not exactly sure? What advice would you give them?
My first one that I always say is to be gentle with yourself. Be so gentle and compassionate with yourself. I do remember some people saying, like, I think this infertility is taking you over. And you know what? Because it does. Because you think about it. You think about it every time you see a family, or you think about your family growing, or you see children, or if you walk down the street. It's something that is on your mind 24/7. And as society, we kind of wrap around this. You get married, you have kids. It's a staple in our society. So you're reminded of it constantly. So be gentle with yourself. And if you have a rough day, you don't have to live there. You don't have to unpack and live there, but you can feel that in the moment. And you can have that day where you eat a tub of ice cream or you cry. And then tomorrow, pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and you're able to go again. But advocate for yourself, because my doctor was great. And as much as she kind of laid out how she had to follow the steps in the 1 year, she was super helpful on the way. And at that 1 year mark, she had no hesitation to to refer me, and it is a process to get in. There's some screening, and being as proactive as possible is great. So remember, like you said, if you're young and healthy and you've been trying for a year, it can't hurt to get it checked.
Absolutely. And if you have an underlying reproductive health issue, then definitely advocate for yourself before that 1 year mark.
Exactly.
For sure. Any expert that we talk to will say that. And I think that's really important. Ask the questions, take control of your reproductive health, and please connect with us, connect with our online support network, ask the questions, and make sure you have the information you need to feel confident making these decisions.
And if the supports in your life aren't working for you, then find new ones.
Great advice. That is great advice. Definitely. So Mandii, in closing, is there anything you want to sort of say? Any final thoughts?
I think we are so lucky to have something like Fertility Matters out there, and I'm grateful for you, Carolyn. And unfortunately, I don't think enough people know about it, and it is such a great support. We have support groups in person, online. There's so much information to be shared, and it's a really tough, muddy water, overwhelming issue to navigate. And
it is.
So by checking out these support groups, it just connecting with people or just finding information, it's a good place to kind of be your own advocate.
Yes, absolutely. Mandii, I am so looking forward to continuing this TTC Time to Chat series with you, where we will be talking to patients about their experiences on all different levels and at all different stages of the fertility journey. So thank you. I look forward to tuning in to you. Mandii will be doing a lot of these discussions, so I'm thrilled that we have her story now, and she'll be helping us to spread the awareness and make people more aware of this beautiful community that we have to offer. So thank you, Mandii, for your time tonight. Thank you for being vulnerable and sharing your story. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in tonight, and we're really looking forward to tune in next Tuesday for our next TTC.
You guys next
Bye.